fight on the beaches, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets.
I have the body of a weak and feeble woman.
All men are created equal. But I have a dream.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of ModsPod. Today we have Finn, who is going to talk to us about the Spanish Armada, why it failed, or why the English won, whichever way this goes. How are you?
I'm good, you?
I'm very good, thank you. You ready to go?
Yeah.
Alright, let's go then. So, you're going to start with the leadership of the Spanish Armada.
Yeah, so Medina Sidonia is probably a very big reason why they lost, because if they actually had good leadership overseas, that would have been a lot better, because he wasn't actually a sailor, so he didn't really have much experience on seas. Plus, he got seasick, so he was pretty much useless the entire time.
So what you're telling me that the Philip of Spain, the king, put a soldier in charge of the navy, the Armada?
Yeah, so it was a bit stupid, because he's not really ever done any sea missions.
Oh.
So he couldn't really tell them what to do.
So, of course, when it started going wrong then, on the sea, this guy didn't have a clue?
Yeah, because he thought that it would be so easy just to go and get into England that they wouldn't have to do any sea fights.
So they're just going to sail straight there, and then he's going to use his skills as a soldier to take over England?
Yeah, that's what he thought would happen, but then obviously that's not quite what happened, because England obviously had a plan.
Oh, or Spanish had a bad plan. Oh,
Yeah.
We'll call him Medina sick on you, shall we?
Yeah.
Sick overboard. Sorry, that's my joke. It's never funny, but we try, don't we? So this Medina Sidonia character is a soldier who, when it started going wrong, he didn't know what to do.
Yeah, because he's not really ever been overseas, so he has no experience with it, and he's never been trained with it, which then leads to his leadership being completely useless. Because what they'd actually need is more sailors on board, because all they really had was soldiers, so no one knew what they were doing when they were on sea.
Yeah, especially when it goes wrong. Is it right that they had a lot of priests as well on board?
Yeah, because they thought that when they take over England, that they can then take over the churches and turn them all to Catholic.
Oh, this was a really bad thing from the start then, wasn't it? They've left Spain. How many ships left Spain?
130.
130 ships left Spain, full of priests and soldiers.
And there's probably, in each ship, there's very few...
sailors?
Yeah, very few sailors, and no one would have listened to them, because they would have all been in a panic whilst they were overseas.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So these ships that they've got then, so they come from all over the empire, Spain's empire.
Yeah.
Because the year before, I don't know if you know, no, we didn't talk about this in class, but the year before, Sir Francis Drake,
Yeah.
England's greatest ever pirate,
Yep.
went down to a place called Cadiz and burnt the Spanish ships while they were on the scaffolds.
Yeah.
So they had to borrow all these ships from all over the empire, and a lot of the ships had the wrong size cannons. So
Yeah.
what do we know about that?
So when they were in battle, one-on-one with the actual England, because they'd previously dropped their anchors because of the horrible weather, which was one of the worst mistakes they could do. So then they decided to cut it off so that they could go and have fight off the English, and half the cannonballs were too big for the cannons. So half the cannons which they used would be unable to be used for the rest of the fight. So they would have to spin the ship round, which would take around 45 to an hour minutes.
Yeah, definitely.
So they would have been completely destroyed and sunk by the time they would have had time to spin around and use the other cannons.
So even if Medina Sidonia was amazing, what can you do if your cannons are getting stuck in the cannon machines or cannon balls, sorry?
Yeah.
So, all right. The weather, you talk about the weather a little bit. Arguably a crucial
Yeah, it's
reason.
probably one of the biggest reasons why they lost, because the weather made them drop their anchors, like I said, which then they cut them off because they didn't have enough time to pull them up, so they no longer had any anchors on them, and that also really put them by shock, because it allowed the English to send out some fire ships, which is really, really good, because then it managed to split up the Armada, causing them all to then start getting worried, and that's why they dropped their anchors, because they saw the ships coming over, and when they dropped their anchors, then it all just went haywire, and they had no clue what to do.
What shape did the Spanish Armada sail in?
They done it in sort of like a horseshoe sort of shape and came round, so that if there's any boats coming the inside, then they'd all get shot at. And yeah.
So that would be the only way to beat the Spanish, would be to break this formation up, this crescent shape. So the fire ship you're talking about. So this was the Battle of Gravelines.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, isn't it? So the weather turned really bad. Medina Sidonia, you're telling me, put his anchors down. Bad mistake.
Yeah.
And then he sees Francis Drake sending in these fire ships. How many were there?
There was 8.
8 fire ships. So 8 of our smaller ships, and I think we'll talk about the English ships in a minute, maybe.
Yeah.
But 8 of our ships, probably been a bit damaged anyway, so, no loss really, into these huge galleons, 130 Spanish ships. And essentially what happened is the ships broke into them, and because they put their anchors down, they then have to cut them, you've just said, which, with the weather being so bad, it sends the Spanish ships all over the place. And then the 1-to-1 battles, what happened there? Why did they struggle so much? Think about maybe the English ships.
Well, the English ships were a lot smaller, so it was a lot easier to turn them around and move them and get them to manoeuvre. So, and plus, with the actual one-on-one fight, the English had their cannons on rails, so that then whenever it would only take one person to push the cannon forward whenever they shot it at the other ship, unlike the other one where it took 5 to 8-ish men to go and push it all forwards and then reload.
So why do they need to push it forward? What happens when a cannon fires?
When it fires, it has it gets shot back, and it took a lot of men to be able to hold it and stop it from going as far back. But then it would be a lot heavier to push forwards as well.
So like a bit of a recoil.
Yeah.
So what are these rails? What's that about?
So they put it on rails, so then when it would go back, it's a lot easier to push it forwards. Because then instead of having to push it really hard, it would be on rails, so it's a lot easier just to. So
essentially, that then means they can fire more quicker.
Yeah, they can fire a lot faster, so they'd have had a lot more hits on the ship than the Spanish would.
Yeah, and they've got these big ships, and even if their cannons did fire well, ships were too big to turn around.
Yeah.
So actually, having smaller ships in this case was better.
Yeah, and it must have been harder to actually hit because they've only been able to use a smaller range of cannons, which were in the middle, because they couldn't use wide ones.
So do you think these English ships, does someone deserve credit for that as a reason for England winning? Did someone design them like that?
I think they probably were designed to be smaller, because then it's quicker and easier.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So there's a guy called John Hawkins, who's one of Elizabeth's main sailors, so he's working with Francis Drake. He designed these smaller ships, and they were lower to the water. So if you think about a car, the F1 cars, they're really low to the ground, and that makes them easy to turn without sort of flipping over.
Yeah.
So the idea of having your ships closer to the water meant that they, in bad weather, they had much more control, and that's helped to be able to turn those ships around. I like that idea that actually having a smaller boat has paid off so well, because this Armada's controlled half of South America, hasn't it?
Yeah.
They've taken over. The empire is huge in South America, and then they come to the English Channel, and they get beaten by a couple of little fishing boats.
Yeah.
Or not quite fishing boats. So what has Holland got to do with it? Was Medina Sidonia trying to get to Holland for anything?
Yeah, he was trying to get it to pick up an extra 30,000 ships, but he ended up not being able to, because they were all sat there hiding, because they were currently in a war. So they had to hide, so none of them were ready to actually get onto the ships, which left them to fight for themselves with 30,000 less people, which was very bad, which is a main cause why the Spanish Armada lost.
Yeah, especially as they're being harangued or chased by these small English boats who can turn much quicker. So why did Medina Sidonia somehow fail to get to Holland? What happened there?
He had really bad communication with Palmer, who was waiting at Holland, and he was currently at the Battle of Gravelines.
Yeah. So by the time they just got fed up waiting, I guess, and they left. Yeah. All right. Good job it never made any difference in the end, because the weather took over, really, didn't it? Or as Elizabeth said, they blew, God blew, and they were scattered. She said God was Protestant today.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, going backwards a little bit, how on earth did Elizabeth even know that the Spanish Armada was arriving?
Well, originally she got told by someone that the Spanish Armada was coming, so she came up with a plan. So for these huts across the towns and villages up to London, so she planted some beacons which could hold a big fire in, so that when the Spanish Armada, they could see the Spanish Armada coming, they would light theirs, then they would be around 10 to 20 miles apart, and then the other person would light theirs, and it'd go all the way back to London, and then then she'd find out that they were coming.
Okay, so they started off on the south coast,
Yeah,
and then the next person saw, so they lit theirs, and the next person saw all the way to London.
yeah,
That's really clever, actually. So obviously she's prepared it anyway, I hope, isn't she?
yeah.
I think there's rumours, isn't there, that Drake was playing, or Raleigh was playing bowls as the Spanish Armada arrived. Overconfident, do you think?
Yeah,
I mean, they won, but that's a little bit risky, isn't it?
yeah,
All right, so we've lost then. We've won, being English,
yeah.
and the Spanish have lost. So the ships that were left that hadn't been destroyed in one-on-one battles, what happened to them?
So there's around 60 ships which managed to get home, but the ones which got destroyed and stuff, they went all around the UK, and the people who got washed up on the Scottish and Irish land, they actually got eaten by them.
Eaten by them?
Yeah.
Oh, is that a fact or is that a myth?
People think that it's true, but it's not 1,000,000%
Being
true.
Scottish, I can understand that. Is that because they thought these people were coming to attack them or invade them?
Yeah.
So obviously you eat your enemies, don't you? That's a bit gross.
Yeah.
Good old Scottish and Irish. I can hope that is true. So you're saying of the 130 odd or so ships, about 60 made it back home?
Yeah, around
Do
60.
you think this is like a humiliation for Philip?
Yeah, to say he's the strongest king in the world at that point in time, to be killed by a woman in those days.
Well, he wasn't quite
That's
killed,
quite
but
bad.
defeated.
Yeah, defeated by a woman
Defeated.
in those days is quite bad.
So you've explained really well why the Armada failed, which is interesting. And I totally agree with those things. I think probably Medina Sidonia being a rubbish leader didn't help, did it? But without the weather, they wouldn't have been able to use the fire ships, maybe. So maybe God was Protestant after all.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, then let's go right back to the beginning. Let's go back a few years. Look at the causes of the Armada, the reasons why Philip sent the Armada. What do you think they are?
Well, there is quite a few reasons why, because one of the main ones would probably be because Queen Elizabeth was Protestant and the king was Catholic, so they obviously had a rivalry because both religions actually hated each other. Some other reasons was Queen Elizabeth actually helped the Dutch fight against Spain, which obviously he didn't like that because she had nothing to do with that battle, so
All right.
it must have annoyed him.
So we can understand that. So in Holland, Spain has invaded. It's
Yep.
called the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
And they did some really horrific things to the Dutch Protestants. And I suppose Elizabeth being Protestant, maybe I think she probably thought she should help. But then it's obviously going to upset Philip because, like you say, he probably says it's got nothing to do with you. So maybe she felt a need to. I think she did put it off for years because she was worried about upsetting him. But in the end, she did help the Dutch. She helped them with some money, a little bit indirectly, but enough to upset Philip. So that's definitely a good reason.
Yeah, and also another reason is she knighted Sir Francis Drake, who was a pirate who attacked all the Spanish ships and actually stole £440,000 off them, which nowadays that would be in the billions.
A
So
lot of money is to steal, isn't it? So what? You're telling me that Drake stole from Philip and Elizabeth praised him for it, knighted him?
yeah, which doesn't make much sense, especially since she doesn't really want to get into a fight with him. Because
Is she crazy?
yeah, probably.
That's like going to like the hardest kid in the school and like, I don't know, spitting on them or something. Like, what? Well, that's just madness. So, all right, 440 grand in your bank probably makes you more confident, doesn't it,
Yeah.
to do that? So she knighted Drake, Sir Francis Drake. Maybe if I was Philip, I'd have invaded as well.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else why you might have been upset with her?
Yeah. Also, a few years ago, before that, she actually rejected him. And yeah.
So a man rejected by Elizabeth. So you think this was revenge motivated because she
Yeah.
embarrassed him by saying no to his charms?
Yeah, because back then no one would have said no to him because he's the strongest king there.
Yeah. And to be fair, he had just been married to her sister, hadn't he?
Yeah.
So she probably thought that'd be a bit weird. But hey, this is true at the time, isn't it? All right. So Mary, his sister, she was Catholic, wasn't she? So
Yeah.
probably Philip wanted to make England Catholic again
Yeah.
and rule it like he had done under Mary. So you've said about having you the Protestant versus Catholic. So who would give Philip permission, do you think, to have this holy war?
It would obviously have been the Pope.
All right. So the Pope has basically given Philip this mission to go and convert England back to Catholic again. Elizabeth hasn't really got much of a chance, has she?
No.
Has she been faced with any other sort of Catholic problems at home?
Yeah, she has actually with her cousin Mary, Queen of Scots, because she actually jailed her for 20 years and then cut off her head, which it was quite gruesome because it took 3 slices out the head to finally get it off, and they also had to cut out the front of her throat to finally get it off. And then when they picked up her head to show it up, her head actually dropped out of her wig, which was quite funny.
Oh, God. I mean, this is a queen, isn't it, that we're killing here? So that's probably a little bit embarrassing, but imagine seeing that. So 3 blows to get her head off.
Yeah.
That's because she's Scottish, you see. She's made of good stuff.
Yeah.
The greatest country on earth. All right, so all those things considered then, so what have we said? Elizabeth refused to marry him. The pirates. Elizabeth helping the Dutch. Or the religious war. Or Mary Queen of Scots. Which of those do you think are probably the most important reason?
One of the most important would probably be for knighting Sir Francis Drake, I say, because he actually helped us win the Spanish Armada, which was actually quite good. But for him, stealing £440,000 off you, that's going to be really annoying because that could have helped to actually build the Spanish Armada later on.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably going to be one of the top of why.
Yeah, she's asking for it, isn't she, by knighting him, definitely.
Yeah.
So can you see Philip's point of view, perhaps, in that he thinks he's doing the right thing, trying to turn England back into this safe Catholic country again, or does he need to butt out?
Well, to be honest, he just needs to go away. It's not really much of his business over in England.
Well, maybe if the Pope's told him he needs to do it. So England, by this point, let's just go back a little bit. So England is Protestant, right, under Elizabeth?
Yeah.
So it was Catholic under Mary.
Yeah.
And it was Protestant under Edward. And then it was Catholic at first under Henry VIII, then a bit Protestant, but no one's quite sure. So we could describe that as a religious sort of roller coaster.
Yeah.
So do you think the people were just like fed up with all this religious change?
Oh, yeah, probably. So most of them would have probably just started saying that they're not any religion because at some point there was people who were people got really confused with what religion they were meant to be, with Catholic or Protestant, so no one said what religion they were at that point.
Yeah. So Elizabeth's sister, Mary I, Bloody Mary, she was a bit notorious for killing Protestants, wasn't she?
Yeah, she actually killed 284 people on a fire, and one of them was a pregnant lady who, once she got put on the fire, her baby popped out, and then the Queen ended up throwing her back on the fire.
Well, not the Queen. Let's not change history, but on her orders.
Yeah, on the Queen's orders, she got back on the fire.
That Protestant baby was killed as well. Oh dear, no wonder she called Bloody Mary, eh?
Yeah.
So I reckon the people are pretty fed up with religion so far, aren't they? So this Armada, they must have been scared because in Holland, we briefly mentioned before about the Spanish Inquisition, and I said they did some really horrible things, the Catholics in Holland, to the Protestants. I suppose, do you think the English were worried that they would do that to us if they came to England, kill the Protestants?
Yeah, probably.
All right, so they were really horrible things. Murdered, beheadings, hangings, burnings. So we really needed Elizabeth to win this, didn't we?
Yeah, otherwise, nowadays, the world would be well, not the world necessarily, but the UK would be completely different.
Yeah, well, exactly, because we went on to build the empire, didn't we?
Yeah.
Perhaps if we were Spanish all along, maybe it wouldn't be so bad speaking Spanish, would it? If Philip would have won.
Yeah.
So the Spanish Armada was the last time that England was attacked or invaded before Hitler.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, really, isn't it? Or large-scale invasion. And I think the last successful invasion of England was 1066.
Yeah.
So this is a significant part of English history, right?
Yeah.
And thankfully, in lots of ways that we won, and we've come out with these heroes now, Sir Francis Drake, Walter Raleigh. What did Elizabeth do to maybe motivate the English to fight a little bit harder?
So personally, herself, she came out and went over to all the villages and towns and went and gave her really, really famous speech to every single town and village, which then made all of them be like, you know what, we can win this one, because it's not normal for the Queen or a monarch to come down over to them and just talk to the normal villagers, so it must have really motivated them.
Is that speech where she talked about being a woman, just a weak and feeble woman?
Yeah.
But the heart of a king, and a king of England too. Do you think that would have motivated you to fight harder?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah. So are we saying that's the reason they won?
That's going to be quite up there, because they would have tried to fight even harder for them.
Special, wasn't it? So of all the reasons why the Armada lost, do you want to pick one that you think is the most important?
I'm going to say the weather, because if it wasn't for the weather, most of the other tactics that England had wouldn't have worked. And also, the Spanish Armada wouldn't have dropped their anchors and multiple other things, the fire ships wouldn't have worked, so they wouldn't have broken formation.
True.
So if it wasn't for the weather, then the Spanish Armada probably would have succeeded, because as soon as they get to land, we stood no chance.
I think I agree. I wonder, I suppose this is like just hypothetical, isn't it, Finn, that if Medina Sidonia was a sailor, would he have done anything different? Could he have done anything different?
Well, to be honest, if he was a real sailor, then he would have done a lot better, because he wouldn't have been seasick, so he wouldn't have been as useless, because he didn't give out any orders, really, because he was seasick. And he would have actually been able to know what to do when the weather struck.
Yeah. The cannons would have still got stuck there, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would have.
And the ships were still too big for the English Channel. And he still faced the quicker, smaller English ships. I don't know. I feel a bit sorry for him. Do we feel sorry for him? Is that Philip's fault for picking such a stupid leader?
It is kind of Philip's fault, because he's never been on a ocean fight, so...
So this is what we're saying. Never mess with Queen Elizabeth I,
Yeah.
the greatest of all time.
And if it wasn't for England winning that fight, there would have been multiple more people wanting to try and invade, because that proved how strong we are, because we defeated the strongest king in the world.
It certainly made Elizabeth feel better and more confident. The people loved her again for the last, nearly 20 years of her reign, because, like you say, she's defeated the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah.
Also helps with the propaganda, doesn't it, to say that Protestantism's good, because she could easily say, because everyone's so religious, that God wanted England to win.
Yeah.
And maybe make the Catholics go away a little bit. So, we've said that a little bit. That's quite cool. If the Protestants win, that's great. Do you think the Catholics at home in England would have wanted Philip to win?
Well, I'll say they probably would, but Queen Elizabeth tried to, at the start of her reign, she really tried to get them on her side, because she made the religious settlement. And if you don't know what that is, so pretty much she made a church, a religion, which is for Catholics and Protestants. So it's kind of like in the middle of both.
All right, so not like a crazy Sister Bernard people and a mad Protestant brother Edward. She was going to be middle ground.
Yeah, and try help them out, but because all she wanted them to do is they can do whatever they want at home, but they publicly saying they're Protestant.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So why would they risk that little cosy deal that they've had? Because I think they probably must have been involved in some of those plots for Mary Queen of Scots, mustn't they?
Yeah.
So do you think they really wanted Mary Queen of Scots on the throne?
The Catholics, yeah, because they would rather have a complete Catholic country rather than both.
So it's important to know, because at the start of Elizabeth's reign, 90% of the country were Catholic.
Yeah.
So by the end, it was up very low, maybe 5 to 10%. So most of the Catholics have either moved on or changed religion,
Yeah.
or dead. But you say she tried to not be mean or horrible to the Catholics.
Yeah.
But if they started plotting against her, then she had to, didn't she? She's a Tudor queen after all. That's how you dealt with things. And this war was just another sort of way of fighting against the Catholics.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. So, Finn, thanks for that. I love that. I love the Tudors, especially Elizabeth. That was a really brilliant discussion about the Armada, why it came, why it lost. So glad it won. Naughty Philip trying to invade our wonderful queen. So thanks very much, and we look forward to next time, seeing what we come up with on your next episode.
Yep.
All right, take care, and everybody else, thanks for listening. Goodbye.